Privacy by design. You've heard it, right? It's everywhere, from startup pitches to big corporate meetings. But what is it, really? Is it just a trendy phrase to make us all feel a little better? Or is it a genuine, fundamental shift in how we build technology? Today, we're going to cut through all that noise and find out. This quote it hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? It's so easy to say you care about privacy, but it's a whole other ballgame to actually weave it into the very DNA of a product. So we're going to explore what it takes to go from just talking the talk to actually walking the walk. All right, so before we can decide if it's important, we need to know what we're even talking about. Let's strip away the jargon. What does privacy by design, or PBD for short, actually mean when the rubber meets the road? To really get this, we've got to go back in time a bit. See, this whole idea isn't some knee-jerk reaction to a new law. It's actually a philosophy that's been cooking for decades, way before most regulators were even paying attention. Believe it or not, this idea has been around since the 90s. A woman named Dr. Anne Cavoukian started arguing that privacy shouldn't be an afterthought. It should be the default, built right into a system from the get-go. But, it took a massive scandal like Cambridge Analytica to really light a fire under everyone. That's when this idea went from an academic paper to actual law right inside Europe's big data protection rulebook, the GDPR. And this brings us to a huge, huge misconception, especially in the startup world. You hear it all the time, the idea that privacy is a later problem, something you can just bolt on after you've made it big. The old mantra was all move fast and break things. Well, the new reality is that a privacy failure can break your entire company. And I'm not just talking about big fines from regulators. I'm talking about losing user trust. That's a currency that once you've spent it is incredibly hard to earn back. Seriously, kicking the privacy can down the road is just a recipe for disaster. On a technical level, trying to jam privacy into a product that's already built is a complete nightmare for engineers. But more importantly, your users are smart. They see the headlines, they know about the data breaches. One mistake can completely shatter the trust you worked so hard to build. But here's the twist. For new companies, this isn't a burden. It is a massive opportunity. Think about it. Unlike the big established players, startups don't have these ancient clunky systems. They have no technical debt. They have a blank slate to build it right from day one. Let me show you how this plays out in the real world. Let's talk about Proton Mail. They didn't just meet the minimum privacy standards. They built their entire company, their entire brand on top of it. From the very beginning, they engineered their email service with end-to-end encryption and what they call a zero-access architecture. That means not even they can read your emails. They turned privacy from a chore into their #1 selling point. And guess what? It worked. They proved this isn't just good ethics, it's great business. Okay, so we know why it's important. Now let's get practical. Let's get into the nitty-gritty. What does doing privacy by design actually look like? Well, it really boils down to just a few core ideas. The fundamental shift in thinking is this. You have to stop looking at user data as a resource to be mined and exploited. You have to start seeing it as a precious asset that someone has entrusted you to protect. This isn't just playing with words. This one change in perspective affects every single decision you make about your product. So here's the playbook. First, data minimization. Simple idea. Just collect the data you absolutely need to make your service work. Nothing extra. Second, user-centric defaults. Privacy should be the default setting, not some option your users have to hunt for in a maze of menus. And finally, and this one is critical, you have to vet your vendors. That third-party tool you plugged in can easily become your single biggest weak spot. Now, let's talk business. Let's talk dollars and cents, because doing this stuff isn't just about ethics or staying out of trouble. It's actually one of the smartest strategic decisions you can make. When privacy is built in from the start, following rules like GDPR becomes a natural side effect of how you work.
not some frantic scramble to get compliant. Collecting less data actually simplifies your whole system and reduces engineering headaches. But most importantly, you build a brand that people genuinely trust, which has become one of the most powerful advantages in today's economy. So let's be really clear here. This is no longer about some pie-in-the-sky idealism. In an age where data breaches are in the news almost every week, building with privacy at the core isn't a nice-to-have. It is a fundamental requirement for survival and for any kind of long-term growth.
So this is the big question, right? If the business case is so strong, why do so many companies still treat privacy like it's an afterthought? And, the simple, honest answer is that privacy, when it's done right, is often invisible. It doesn't show up as a shiny new feature on your product roadmap. It doesn't have a clear, immediate return on investment you can point to for an investor. It's a preventative measure, and prevention is always a harder sell.
But that's exactly why we need to reframe this entire conversation. We've got to stop looking at privacy as some kind of cost or a roadblock that gets in the way of innovation.
It's not a burden you have to carry. It's a lens you see through. A lens that shifts the question from what can we do with this data to what should we do? And that subtle shift leads to more ethical, more intentional, and ultimately just plain better products. And it's definitely not a feature you can just add on at the very end. It is the foundation that you build everything else on. Just like the foundation of a building. It's not the most glamorous part, but without it, the whole structure is at risk of collapse. So let's bring it all the way back to where we started. Is privacy by design just a buzzword? The answer is a clear, emphatic no. It is a fundamental, non-negotiable requirement for building any responsible, resilient, and successful technology today. And that's the thought I really want to leave you with. In this age of distrust and constant data breaches, the real risk isn't the cost of doing privacy right. It's the catastrophic cost of what happens when you ignore it.